Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started, and we'll expect a few more people to drop into the room over the next few minutes. So welcome, everyone. I'm Jason Boldt. I'm the Chief Growth Officer here at Vecteris, and I'm one of the authors of Commercialize, which is how to monetize, market, and sell productized offerings and professional services, which is a mouthful. We're not going to win any awards there for the subtitle, but I'm joined by my co-author, Sean Gillispie, who's also one of our amazing coaches that works with organizations day in and day out on their productization initiatives. So our goal for today really is to give you a comprehensive but brief overview of the key findings from the Commercialize book and how we're seeing B2B services companies accelerate the sales of their services and product offerings. So with that, Sean, we'll jump in on the next page. And as a bit of background, for those of you who don't know, Vecteris has been on this journey for many years now of helping B2B professional services firms productize their offerings. We've written a couple books so far that have articulated what we call our productized pathway methodology that we use day in and day out with our customers to a broader audience. Productize is the bestseller that actually just crossed 15,000 copies sold, which is pretty incredible for a book. And Fearless on the far right was our second book that dives into the cultural and change management challenge of productization. And so what we're really excited is to share that our third book, Commercialize, is finished and we'll be publishing very soon on October 9th, to be specific. And so it'll be available in prints, ebook, and audio on that date. We can't wait to share it with you and the stories of dozens of B2B professional services leaders who have successfully commercialized their offerings through our work together. Okay, so why did we decide to write this third book? And the main reason was that there was a persistent problem that we saw pop up again and again over the past few years, and we can look at that on the next page here. And that problem is that the revenue that we expect to earn from productized services or products just wasn't materializing. So the gap between expectation and reality was too great, and organizations effectively kept on running into revenue stalls for their productized offerings. And so when we talked to B2B services leaders, we heard things like you see on the far right-hand side of the page in blue. One is, we assume we could sell the product with our existing team and approach, or our product just isn't being utilized. It's not renewing. We simply don't have enough leads to hit our goals. I'm sure many people here have talked about that conversation. So in a nutshell, we don't have enough leads, and when we do, we can't convert them. And even when we do convert them, customers aren't buying the service again and renewing. And that is a lot of pain. And so we saw this again and again, and that's why we decided to take a deeper look to see what was going on and how successful companies were overcoming these challenges. And we started by looking at some of our data to nudge us in the right direction of what might be different and what might be going on. So next page, Sean. Thank you. So the highlight, of course, just here is in the title of this slide. Successful commercialization requires new capabilities. So to set some of the context behind how we got there, I want to start with some of the data that we ran from our 2023 and 2024 benchmarking study, wherein we studied the attributes of successful and unsuccessful productization initiatives. From that data, we observed a few different gaps that we saw between successful and unsuccessful organizations over here on the left-hand side, really three in particular. How do we move faster with development and launch? How do we set the right sales strategy, structure, and incentives? And then how do we reduce customization in the delivery of our services or the product? So in a nutshell, the biggest gap that we saw in unsuccessful organizations is the ability to quickly get an offering to market, sell it successfully, and then prevent the inevitable urge to bring customization back into the sales and delivery process. And so when we looked at successful organizations, meaning organizations that achieved their business case for productization, we saw the inverse. So they were 2 times as likely to get their offering to market in less than a year. So speed begets successful sales, and then scale in year 2. And so from talking to many of the leaders in these organizations, it became apparent that what allows them to go to market quickly and successfully is that they start building go-to-market capabilities from the start of their productization efforts. And they recognize that it involves multiple areas of consideration. So through our research for the book, we identified 5 specific shifts that B2B services firms need to make to successfully commercialize their offerings. And I'll turn it over to Sean, who's going to take us through each of those shifts in a bit of detail, and then talk about two in particular, packaging and pricing, and then your sales channel that we saw spike as especially relevant for organizations to look at this time. So with that, Sean, I'll turn to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jason. So as Jason mentioned, as professional services firms introduce the products they have building recurring revenue around, they really do need to evolve their commercialization capabilities to be successful. And again, as Jason mentioned, this requires important shifts in 5 key areas. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each one here, and this slide will build. And so the first one that we want to talk about is they need to consider who to sell to. And then this is what we broadly call market understanding. So choosing the right markets and understanding the needs of the market is where all great commercialization strategy starts. So as a professional services firm, the common starting point is to sell to a broad set of customer segments. This is because they will have the opportunity to define the success criteria for each individual customer as they're responding to RFPs and such. So it's less important to identify commonalities across customers within a particular segment. But to offer a successful product, the shift organizations need to make is really to target a narrow niche that they can delight and then they can serve really well. And so when it comes to products, built for all ends up meaning fit for none. So to really deliver for that customer group, that target niche, it must be honed to their common, urgent, and expensive problems for that particular segment. So that's why deciding who the best target market is for your new solution is really the most important first go-to-market decision you'll make, because it will then influence everything else. As we move on to the next topic, organizations really need to design the monetization of their offerings. And this is done through the pricing and packaging of the product. Most B2B professional services firms sell their time and expertise, typically through cost-plus pricing model or time and materials. But when selling products, organizations need to shift to selling a standardized offering packaged by their IP and often bundled with their core services. And these types of offerings really should be packaged and priced to align with the value being delivered. And that's really important to really stress that customer perception of value, not just thinking inwardly about the cost and desired margins, but how the customers perceive that value is that important mindset shift. And so if done right, customers will happily pay more as more value is delivered to them because their ROI will be really clear. The next topic here is around marketing. So how do you generate those leads? Like Jason, talked about one of those problems up front. Too often we see organizations underestimate the shift in the types of marketing efforts required and the level of effort required. So B2B professional services firms are more often focused on building relationships through thought leadership, brand building, because they're selling their people and their expertise to that broader target audience. But when productizing, organizations need to shift towards that to an omni-channel approach to reach a targeted segment with targeted messaging about how that product solves their urgent and expensive problems. And this is because the buying process is different, as it should be with higher volume. Generally then also lower dollar amounts and quicker deal cycles. The importance of marketing and upfront research the customer is doing is amplified. The next area that we noticed is that following on that, organizations really need to establish their sales channels for the productized offerings. And services firms most often utilize doer sellers or sales reps who are adept at selling the expertise and capabilities of the organization to deliver on unique customer needs. When productizing, we see over and over again that the skills to sell consulting services are very different from selling standardized products. And so the sales motion must be more efficient at qualifying a prospect, connecting with their pain, and using a more value-based sales approach. On top of that, you need to have the right incentives for the product sale to be as appealing to the sales reps. And there's a further nuance here, is that usually organizations are selling both services and productized offerings together, which means that there needs to be a hybrid approach of the skills. So in all, this is where we see the biggest need for change management efforts. And then the final area and the final consideration is really deciding when to capture the value. And the key here is recognizing that productized sales enables you to align on lifetime customer value. So services firms are very accustomed to immediate revenue impact of selling work. All effort and internal investment are almost immediately repaid, but that work is not necessarily repeatable. So the organization needs to go re-win the next piece of work over and over for each deal. When productizing, there's a shift that needs to take place, not just in the pricing model to change the recurring revenue, but in designing the product and the customer experience to really orient around earning the repeated renewals by delivering increased value to the customers in the long term. And so these products should be an embedded and indispensable part of that customer's business. And from there, you will earn that compounding growth when you start seeing renewals and your sales team isn't as worried about re-winning every deal. So there are a lot of important new skills and mindset shifts across all 5 areas. Today, we're just going to look at 2 areas a little deeper in particular, as we get some of the most questions in those 2 areas. And so for today, those are first, as Jason mentioned, pricing and packaging, with a particular focus on the role of packaging. And the second is how to establish and enable the sales channels that will succeed. So let's first start with pricing and packaging and define what we mean by packaging. So when we say package, what we're talking about is a predefined set of often standardized services or features offered together at a set price. So for each customer segment, they're designed to match the particular problem that customer has in that segment, and that they're looking to solve, which is often also called jobs to be done. That's why we have the JTBD there. And so with those customers, also considering their willingness to pay to solve that problem. So this definition hopefully seems straightforward, but we see organizations continually running into some of the same challenges and mistakes when they're considering that segmentation. So this is where the first observation we really have comes in play, is that we often get asked about how to price a new productized offering. We're thinking about bringing this to market, help us figure out what the pricing should be. But what we found is that this question is the more important piece and place to start is actually understanding how the product should be packaged with other offerings. So this picture represents this shift. Many organizations may initially think they're offering something akin to a new recurring flower delivery product to hotels. They want to know, how should we price that? When in reality, that's just a small component of a broader set of services they're providing to that hotel, usually for a long period of time previously. So they now must think more broadly about the packaging of the flowers with the rest of the services. So, and in reality, this is not too far from an actual situation with one of our customers. One particular commercial real estate firm that we work with manages millions of square feet for enterprises around the globe. And the traditional model that firm uses to price their real estate management services is cost plus. This pricing strategy has worked for them in the past because it's a price-sensitive industry, and the strategy mitigates the economic risk of lots of embedded facilities managers performing lots of tasks. But as they're building out technology products that will go alongside those facility management activities, they realized that they could not price the new products on their own, but they had to carefully consider how it would be packaged with that broader offering. So this was not an easy task because they recognized they wanted to break free of the traditional cost plus model and be able to offer a more value-based pricing. So the challenge has been, how do those two live alongside each other? And in their case, they've started to implement things like shared saving models to align tightly with that value the customer is perceiving. So this is one of the important topics and challenges that we often dive into with organizations who are considering, how do we price and package these new productized offerings, especially when they are doing it alongside of existing services. And that's not too far from the next topic that we often get, which is selling products and services together is harder than you think. So that really ties together, because you're going to require change management and you're going to require these skills to be blended together. So we have seen, and many people recognize, that it's hard for services sellers to sell products. And so the obvious answer may seem to be to hire different salespeople. And yes, that setup would be simple if it was just a completely standalone greenfield product to a completely new customer base. But again, what we find most often is that new products are going to be bundled or packaged together with the existing services. And even if you're creating a new product, you will likely want to start by selling to your existing customers first. So you either have to figure out how one sales rep can sell all the offerings into a client and enable that sales rep to also sell that new productized offering, or how you will contend with multiple sales reps selling into the same client who understand each of the different offerings that you're bringing to market. So in either situation, it's going to require considerable change management, and the ways that you sold in the past aren't going to work in the future. And the to do things that will work requires new skills, new processes, and new ways of thinking and behaving across the organization. But until you dive in exactly what those skills and processes need to be for your organization are not going to be clear up front, because there's no one right go-to-market model that just works for everyone. So it's going to depend on many factors around the deal size, deal volume, conversion rates, product complexity, et cetera. So what we most often see is that you need to sell this with your existing team first, and often with particular champions of your commercialization effort, as you identify and figure out what the right process should be. And it's hard but necessary to make that sales team successful before you can really scale it. So contending with these challenges is important, and what I want to cover is some of the key skills that we've seen and how the differences between the services-based selling skills and the productized skills, and then how that translates to what are the right hybrid skills. So many of you may be familiar with services sales approach and what it takes to be successful here. And so I will go over that quickly on the left. And some of you may be familiar with productized selling skills, so I'll also go over that and see the juxtaposition. But where I'm going with this is in the next page, I'll show you what it looks like when you're bringing these together. So what we often see in terms of the services sales approach, you're selling expertise and relationships. And so the sellers are doing a lot of relationship building, they're connecting people and solutions, they're problem solving to craft just the right solution, and building trust through expertise and being helpful. Whereas on the product sales approach side, often people are selling the value of the solution to be successful. So they're connecting with pain points of customers in that market segment. They're being really persuasive towards the firm's unique point of view. And they're building trust by connecting the product, often technical capabilities, with the value it delivers. And then when you look at deal structure, demand gen, who you're targeting, and the promise, on the services side, there's going to be lots of flexibility to craft a deal. Your demand gen is going to be mostly reputation and word of mouth. And you're going to be doing this usually with doer sellers or dedicated services sellers. And generally what you're offering to customers is that your people can deliver the solution you need. Whereas to be successful in the product side, sales side, the deal structure is really selling a standard deal, and that's a core part of the value. The marketing and BDRs and ROI are driving a lot of that demand generation, and this is usually done through dedicated product sellers, with the promise to customers being our product solves your urgent and expensive problem. So now let's look at that. What happens when you're trying to sell these things alongside each other together? This is going to require a hybrid selling technique to really be successful. And so what that looks like is sellers are then building relationships by connecting on underlying pain points They're demonstrating the unique point of view and listening to customers' unique needs. They're crafting a solution that leverages the product and services strengths together. And they're building trust through delivering value that feels unique. So then when you're looking at the deal structure, you want to follow a standard sales process as much as possible and be really clear what flexibility is allowed and is not. From demand gen, often it's really using market proven ROI and leveraging as much word of mouth from the strength of your existing customer base. And then bringing in the people to do this is usually dedicated sellers, but they're often working together as a team and really need to go to market in a very collaborative way. And the promise then becomes our offering solves your urgent, expensive problem that's tailored to your unique needs. And so we really just wanted to give you a flavor of some of the findings that we have come to from researching through this book and talking to lots of organizations who are going through this process, who are going through these go-to-market challenges. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jason to talk a little bit more about how you can get started with commercialization.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So before, I'm going to summarize key takeaways in just a second here. So if you can, grab your phone, open the camera app, and use it to scan this QR code. Basically, we'd love to talk to you about how we can help you commercialize services offering. And so what we'll do in that call is we'll show you our process for how we can help you validate the pricing and packaging so you can start monetizing your offerings, how to build product-based sales, marketing, and customer success capabilities, and how to set a sales strategy that enables you to grow revenue scalably through your productized offerings. So again, take a second, grab your phone, scan the QR code, and we'd love to dive a bit deeper with you. So quickly to recap here on the next page, Sean, we talked about a few things, mainly about why organizations need new capabilities to successfully commercialize their opportunities. And in particular, organizations need to target a specific niche that you can dominate, package your services and products into value-based offerings, use your niche understanding of your customer's urgent and expensive problem to market across channels to a very unique targeted segment and buyer, develop solution-based skilling skills that bring together the best of services and product-based approaches into how those things come together. And then finally, manage your customer relationship across its full life cycle so that you start earning compounding renewable revenue. And so thanks so much again to the QR codes on the right where we can dig into these in detail with you. And then are there any questions in the Q&A or chat? We'd love to turn to those now. Okay. So there's none right now. We'll wait just a second here to see if any come in. If no questions, like I said, please be sure to mark October 9th on your calendar. That's the release date of Commercialize. It's going to be available on all formats on Amazon, so print, ebook, and audio. We're super excited to share it with you, and thanks so much for tuning in today for a few minutes.